1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome into another episode of Talkin G-MAC. I'm your host, Katie Gilhooly, and I am so excited. I know I say that every time, but I really, really mean it this time. Not that I haven't before, but I am very, very excited to have a very special guest on this week, John Tharp, the Director of Athletics at Hillsdale College. John, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us. I'm really excited to do a little Athletics Director Corner for this week's Talkin G-MAC.
Well, Katie, thank you for having me. Just one great thing about becoming the athletic director was getting to know you better, and it's I'm happy to be with you today and look forward to spending time with you and think the world of you.
Likewise here. So I kind of want to take it back. Let's give some people some background. If you aren't familiar with John Tharp, or maybe not familiar with Hillsdale College, you wouldn't know that for several years prior to being named Director of Athletics, John was Coach Tharp, and he coached the men's basketball program there. And really your pedigree and your background, basketball guy through and through. So take me back to Wisconsin, where kind of things all started, and where your journey in college athletics really began.
Yeah. Katie, it's always great to reflect, right? When you have an opportunity to talk and kind of going back to just, fond memories. And so, I was blessed. I told everybody in my life, I had some great coaches. Really started off with my dad. And from an early age, I came from a family of 6. I was number 5. I used to get the heck knocked out of me all the time from my older brothers. And my dad coached me all the way up really until high school. And so just had an amazing foundation of basketball and life from my parents. And was lucky enough to play for a high school basketball coach named Tom Desautel at Sheboygan North High School. And my junior year, we won the Wisconsin State Championship. I had very little to do with that. We had a 7-foot center. My job was to make sure he got the ball. But this Tom Desautel, one of his best friends in life was John Wooden. And so I had a chance to be around Coach Wooden 2 or 3 different times over my life. And, and being, just around him, it was such a great experience. And, I had my Lawrence University team met with him in California. We were playing in a tournament, and man, could he hold court, and even at an older age of his life. And so blessed to really have a great high school coach, and then played Division III basketball for a guy named Bill Napton at Beloit College. And Coach was at one time was president of the NABC. He won over 500 games and was just a classy man. So all these people in my life had such a great influence for getting into coaching. I stayed at Beloit and received. I knew if I left school, I wasn't going to go back to get my master's degree, Katie, and so I stayed there and received my master's degree and was an assistant coach. I was teaching at a Catholic high school, get my master's degree, and was the assistant coach at Beloit College. And because of Coach Napton and the reputation that he had, Lawrence University hired me when I was 24 years old. And that was in Appleton, Wisconsin. And, Katie, it was one of those things. I was going to try to turn that program around as fast as I possibly could and kind of climb that ladder. And my wife and I had our first child. And my firstborn was my little girl, Michaela. And at that moment, I decided what was really important to me. And so building that program over 13 years and the idea of the importance of family. My family was a part of the basketball program, right? And the basketball program was part of the family. And spent 13 great years there. And then in 2007, I received a phone call from Dr. Arn, and he said, why have you not applied for my job? And I said, well, sir, I'm an hour and 15 minutes from my parents and an hour and 15 minutes from my wife's parents. And he said, well, I expect you to be here like in 48 hours. We, I showed up, did the interview, received the job offer. And I shared this story with everybody. On the second interview, I had to bring my family back. And my three kids, Katie, were playing, or two of the three kids were playing at a YMCA 3-on-3 tournament. And so we loaded up the van and we drove to Hillsdale, Michigan. And it was late at night, early in the morning. And my wife kind of hits my shoulder while I'm driving. And I said, what? And she goes, where in the hell are we? And we laughed. I go, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think we're in Michigan somewhere. And sure enough, we've been here since 2007, and it's been an incredible blessing.
Well, quite the incredible journey. Obviously, served 16 seasons as head coach of the Hillsdale College men's program. After the journey that you had kind of been through to make it to Hillsdale, Michigan, where were you at in your coaching career when you stepped foot on Hillsdale's campus, and really what did those 16 seasons look like for you? A lot of success, obviously, on paper, but where did the integration into the campus and the community come for you and your family, really?
Great question, Katie. It was so interesting. When I got here, it was early April of '07, and only 4 players remained on the roster. Right, there were some graduations and new coach. Some people are leaving, and so I'm so grateful for the 4 guys that stayed. I didn't really understand what Division II basketball was. My life was around Division III, and I saw some great Division III teams over my time. And so we decided, I hired Sam Hargraves and a guy named Dan Evans who played for me at Lawrence University. He's now the head coach at North Georgia. And we decided, really, let's try to put a roster together without spending so much money. And so I'll never forget that fall. It was or that spring. We had some guys, some seniors that didn't have scholarship offers, and we kind of put a team together. And I had a blast with those guys, and we had such a great couple of years with those guys. And my first year, Katie, I'll never forget this. Findlay beat Ohio State in an exhibition game, and Grand Valley beat Michigan State in an exhibition game. And so I came home and I looked at my wife. I said, honey, remember all those boxes that we maybe we should keep those? I'm not sure what we just got ourselves into. And so that first year, we went 500, right? We were the 8th seed and at that time at the GLIAC. And I had so much fun with those guys, but I kind of forgot how much energy it took to, the culture of a program, right? Because when I left Lawrence, that culture was so established. It was like the older guys were just teaching the younger guys what we were. And so we had those 4 guys that stayed were great players, and 4 guys that are still important to me right now, right? We're in contact with Tim Holman and Tony Gugino and Evan Stewart and just amazing people. And so I had to see it. I had to see what this Division II world looked like. And very similar to Lawrence, so got here in 2012, we won it. And so we kind of climbed, right? We recruited kids, we climbed, we took a step backwards, and then we continued with that climb. The great thing though, Katie, when you have 3 kids, I didn't want to be the guy that was leaving every 2 years, right? I didn't want to, my 3 kids, I wanted, okay, where can we raise these kids and be happy and let my kids be kids? And so just like kind of the Lawrence recipe, my family became a part of the program. The program became a big part of my family. And I'll never forget this. My daughter wrote a little a little report, and she said, I have 90 big brothers in my life, or something like that, right? And she meant that. And so we just built it that way. We had to see, I had to see what Division II basketball was. It was such a great experience to build it here. And, the idea is we have some academic requirements here, right? and we didn't make any excuses of what we were going to do and how we were going to go about it. And it was a blast to do it. A lot of energy. I got gray all of a sudden, Katie, but it was an amazing journey in my life.
Well, you talk about getting that phone call from President Arn, Dr. Arn. What was it about Hillsdale that led you there, or
Yeah.
for you to make that move at that point in your life, and to leave Wisconsin, which you really established yourself in the basketball community there?
I tell people I felt like Dr. Arn was like this great Jedi Knight, and he mind tricked me. And what he did to me is like he almost challenged me that I couldn't do it here, right? Like you can't. There's no way you can do it. Everybody is this is him talking to me. He goes, everybody says you can't win at Hillsdale because of our academic requirements, and he's like, I don't know if you can get that done here. And I'm kind of looking at this guy, first of all, how intelligent he is. And so, and I also knew, Katie, that I needed a new challenge in my life, right? The 13 years that I spent at Lawrence. And I left two of my best teams when I know they were really, really talented. But I needed that next step, and the idea to have some scholarships, right, and to sit across kids and families and parents, and to be able to go, hey, listen, we can pay for this, and to see the joy that they have, right, that we're giving their young man an opportunity to get their education paid for, and that was a blast. Lawrence is a great school. Became expensive, but some of our kids were coming out with a lot of loan, and that started bothering me a little bit. And so I felt like, okay, let's do this. During that second interview, Katie, he again kind of just like, I'm not sure if you can get this done here, kind of mentality. And I'm such a competitor, and so he mind tricked me, and I got to tell you though, it was hard to say goodbye, right? It was a tough thing to do, and but yet it's been such a blessing to be here. And I've said this many times. My legacy in my life, Katie, was coaching men's basketball for 29 years, and these people that have been in my life, and a lot of them still are today, right? Even back from the Lawrence day that started in 1997. That's what fills my spirit, right? It gives you the reminder of the why. Why did you do what you've done all those years? And when you see these guys, coming to the backyard with their wife and their two little kids, right, and they spend the night with us, and you kind of realize the role that I played, though small. I did have a chance to be a part of some incredible people's lives, and I laugh too when these guys are coming back and they have their little daughters, right? I just get the biggest kick out of that, and so it's been. Like I said, my life is been full of a lot of great memories because of the men that I coached over those 29 years.
Well, I'm going to circle back to the relationships maybe that you've been able to build over your time, as a coach, and where you are now. But I do want to talk a little bit more about what that transition was like for you, coming from a Division III institution to a Division II institution. You saw a lot of change
Yeah,
in your time coaching, and your career. So you go from Division III to Division II. Obviously started out as members of our Midwest region partners in the GLIAC before Hillsdale made the transition to move to the GMAC in that 2016-2017 era. Some familiar faces made that trip with you guys, so it wasn't completely a whole new world. But can you walk through maybe some of the adversity that you faced through your
sure.
coaching career, and maybe how that shaped you into the coach that you ended up being at the end of those 29 years?
Yeah, it was. It's so funny that you go back and you think about that first couple of years, and I think that the '07 year, '08. being the A seed, going to Grand Valley, and Grand Valley I think was the number one ranked team in the country. And then the next year I think we were the third seed, and that was the year Findlay won the national championship. And so it was how do you it was one of those things. I never wanted our program to be transactional, right? It was all about those relationships. And how do you build the program that you can compete and treat people the right way? And it almost made me stay in my own lane, right? This is who we are and this is what we are. And I think it was my third year, Katie. We were like 1-10 to start the season, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, geez, we graduated some great players. We had some very good upperclassmen, but we were super young at other spots. And those are the moments where you would sleep on the couch all night trying to figure out what you needed to do. But I kept on going back to, hey, do you believe in what you're doing? And do you believe in how you're treating these people? And maybe we needed to go through that, right? Maybe we needed to go through that 1-10 to almost unite, to kind of go through that adversity. And so one thing I talk about all the time now is, having a sense of being grateful and gratitude for the things that you have. And sometimes you have to be grateful when you're going through those difficult times or adversity. That year, we won 13 out of our last 15, and got beat by Findlay on Findlay's court in the tournament, in the championship game of the tournament. And so it was almost like we had to go through that time, that difficult time, to almost confirm what we were doing was really right. When we moved to the GMAC, it was such a positive move. Again, I didn't realize it at the time, right? What is this new league? And you look at that, and the what the GMAC has done has been incredible. And the growth and of all the different teams and how competitive it is. I think it's one of the best Division II leagues in America, but people, we're still kind of the new kids on the block per se. And so, it was that change, and to see what that was like, right? We were in the hills of West Virginia, those couple, I'm like, where are we again? Like, where are we? But I think it's been such a great move for Hillsdale College, because of the colleagues and because of the league office. To be honest with you, I think you guys have done such an amazing job. And so, Katie, it was you kind of go up and down with your career, and but I didn't want to define my success or define who I was based on a win-loss record, right? That's what everybody wants to, outside world, how was your season? What type of year did you have? Did you win? How far did you go? You again have to remember the whys of what you do. And that's those amazing student athletes that I had.
Well, it's a perfect segue, because I am going to ask you about some of those wins and losses and
Sure,
some of the
yes, go ahead.
success
Yeah.
that you did see. GMAC Coach of the Year 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021. You were the Regional Coach of the Year in 2020, 2021. Lots of All-American honors that you coached, some GMAC Players of the Year, Freshman of the Year. Some guys that went overseas and played professionally. A lot of good things that came out of the John Tharp era at Hillsdale College. Are there any moments, and if I had to guess, maybe they aren't going to be anything that has to do with wins and losses, but are there any moments from your coaching career at Hillsdale that, when you kind of look back and reflect, they really are always the ones that kind of stand out?
Yeah, Katie, just a few games, right? That year when I was telling you we started at 1-10, we played Grand Valley in that semis on Findlay's court, and really played well and kind of took it to them. And that was a win that I love to the day. And the year that we went to the Elite Eight, we played Ferris State on our home floor, and they put a beat down on us, right? They shot like 65%. We couldn't guard them. And I will never forget this, Katie. I went into the locker room after they, I mean, on our home floor, they beat us like by 30, maybe even more than that. And I went into the locker room and I didn't say a lot, but I said, "Hey guys," I said, we're gonna see them again. And when we do, we'll be more ready, right?" And kind of just walked out. Sure enough, we see them in the second round of the NCAA tournament, uh, and and we played really well, and our guys were so locked in. And I think it started really from that time where we got ourselves embarrassed, but walking out of that locker room, I said, "Hey, we're gonna see them again," and to get them in the second round, and then obviously, getting to the Elite Eight, right, was such an amazing experience, right? And you do everything you can to try to live in that moment as much as you can. It's hard to do that when you're coaching because you're always worried about the next one. Um, but we knew when we lost in that Elite Eight game, getting back on that bus and driving home that next day, we knew it wasn't going to always be the same, right? It was every team special, but Katie, the brotherhood that our guys have, it's again something I'm super proud of, right? These guys love each other, and going to these guys' weddings and have them all stand up, right? I always hear a story that I didn't know about, though. By the way, Katie, it's like a parent at Thanksgiving. It's like, guys, I didn't know that. I don't want to know that. And they always remember. They always remember like the bad thing, right? Or if I lost my temper, or those are the things that they remember. But uh, yeah, those were a couple of wins that meant a great deal to us. You know, it was a blast getting those wins.
Well, I was lucky enough to watch that Elite Eight run firsthand. I was fresh in my tenure at the GMAC office, but was at the regional tournament at Walsh when you guys were able to win, and then were able to go down to Evansville and um, represent us in the Elite Eight, which is always something really special for a conference office to have a regional champion and to see your conference represented on that level. I think it brings me to another question. Nationally, a couple guys on that team ended up moving on and making a little bit of a name for themselves. Patrick Cartier and obviously then Jack Golke, who had a really big spring last year. I know there's probably tens of 20s of 100 kids that also made a huge impact on your program, but what was it like? And you've alluded to maybe, watching them grow personally afterwards. But what was it like seeing some of the guys who were afforded the opportunity with some of the rule changes and the transfer portal and things like that? Being able to see guys like Patrick go on to play in Colorado, and Jack obviously making a name for himself in the NCAA tournament, and I'm sure you've got other stories to tell. But what was it like to see those guys, put in their 4 years of work at Hillsdale and get the opportunity to do some other things on the basketball court?
It was, it's great question, Katie. I'm thankful that you brought this up. It was weird when we got beat in the Elite Eight and coming back, right? And Pat, a couple days later, kind of says, "Coach, I'm moving on." I was hurt at the beginning, right? Because it wasn't. I understood, right? But it was, we were such a family, and my instinct was, well, we had Cartier back. If we were hoping they would stay for one more year and then move on. We thought we had a chance to be again really, really good. The reality with Pat was I was hurt because I loved him so much, and we were so close, right? And I didn't want that to come to an end. And after that initial like kind of 24 hours of just of being hurt, you get it, right? And that now at that moment you got to go, okay, I got to support him as much as I possibly can to find a good place for him, because that's what you want to do. And so it was great to see him go to Colorado State and the success that he had. And then Jack, the Jack story. Jack, he spent 5 years with us, and would never expect anybody to spend 6 years with us. And I said to him, he goes, "Coach, can I go?" And I giggle. I said, "Of course you can, Jack." And we helped him find Oakland. And those guys playing so great at that level. And so all those years I kept on telling everybody that I did more with less. And these two guys are killing at the Division I level. I couldn't say that anymore. I started to say that I was a great developer of talent. None of those things are true, by the way. But I was so proud of what they did and how they represented us. And obviously, Jack became a national story, right? And what he did against Kentucky was incredible. And the whole line is that when he says, "Hey, we're not a Cinderella," right? I mean, I was so proud of those guys. And Katie, what people don't realize, the amount of hours that those guys were in the gym outside of practice, you understand why they were so good. And Pat was as special a Division II player as we could ever have. And Jack there's so many great stories I could tell about those guys, about being great teammates and so forth. And so I was super proud of what they've done and the men that they are.
Well, we've certainly seen Jack light it up from behind
Yeah.
the three-point line up at Hillsdale and throughout the league. So I don't know if it was such a shock to the rest of us that he had
Yeah.
such a stellar tournament run, and the same to go with Pat. Obviously made quite the mark on the league as well. But you coach a couple years after that Elite Eight run, and then we get the news that you have applied and have been hired as the director of athletics at Hillsdale College. And I don't know necessarily if it was shocking. I think maybe folks just didn't know if that was, you could have kept coaching, right? And I think you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I want to ask you what that decision was like to step away from coaching and to move into a new role and a new challenge. And obviously, I'm sure it's special to get to do at a place that you're so familiar with, that you've invested so much time in, and it sounds like has really become home for you and your family. But can you walk me through what that process was like and that decision?
Oh gosh, Katie. So Don Brubaker, I thought it was like in December, kind of says, "Hey, listen, I'm retiring at the end of the year." And Katie, we were like 13-0 at the time, or 12-0, and so I sat on it for about 3 weeks, and I went and spoke to Dr. Arn. Said, "Sir, I'm interested in possibly pursuing this." And I said to him, the only thing though is, if you don't think I'm worthy, I'm fine with that. I got a lot of energy left to coach, but I feel like I can serve the college differently. And I said, just please don't give me an interview for this because I've been here. I said, give me an interview because of what I've done here. And so kind of was going through that process while we were second half of the season, almost the last third of the season. There were some other things happening in my life in regard to possible other coaching jobs. And I think I've shared that with you. And so I'm going to tell you this funny story, Katie. We lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and I'm terribly superstitious. And during that COVID year when we were 19-1, I was wearing the same outfit for every game. I was doing a lot of laundry in between games, Katie. Okay, and so same dress pants, same jacket. Okay, and so fast forward the following year, that's the year we go to the Elite Eight. Again, I'm in the exact same outfit. The next year, which was my last year of coaching, we changed from Royal to Navy. I'm in the same pair of dress pants, same coat. I'm doing laundry on Fridays and Sundays to make sure. Okay, so that Monday, after we lost to the NCAA tournament, I'm doing laundry and I'm having a conversation with the Lord Himself. I'm talking. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? I said, "Can you give me a sign?" Because I was torn, right, Katie? I was torn, um, and as I was doing laundry, I am talking to the Lord, and my dress pants I was wearing for 3 straight years. I'm folding it, and there is a gigantic hole on the seat of my pants. And at that moment, I said, "Okay, thank you for the sign." I knew that my next chapter in my life was to possibly serve and be the athletic director at Hillsdale College. And so it was it was it was it was an interesting time, right? Because the people that were closest to me in my life, um, in one instance, they knew um, how much coaching meant to me, right? And my passion and my love of doing it. They that's what they knew that was a big part of who I was, and they couldn't maybe see me being something different. And I kept on telling everybody, I've always said I'm not about just the wins and losses, right? And I said I think I want to be able to serve the college and serve our student athletes and serve our coaches differently than what I'm currently doing. And so there were a couple heart to heart conversations that I had with a lot of different people. My 88-year-old mom, Katie, could not even fathom that I would think about getting out of coaching, right? I mean, she has the GMAC app watching Thursdays and Saturdays, yelling at the TV, usually at me if I was made a bad decision or a referee. She couldn't, she couldn't, she couldn't quite grasp that. Um, and but I realized that my next chapter of my life and the next opportunity in my life was to be here. And I've shared this with you. I think I'm not a great administrator, right? It's not something that I love to do, but I love the kids and the student athletes and the coaches that we have, and so it gives me the purpose of the last part of my career of try to serve and try to coach coaches and try to coach kids and try to make our department the best that we possibly can be. And so the decision, though, Katie, it was painful, right? It was I don't know if painful is the right word, but I was being torn a lot of different ways. But I didn't realize again the blessing that it would be to be the athletic director here and to kind of get to know kids in a variety of different sports. I mean, I teared up, Katie. I'm a baby, but sentimental when our men's cross country team won the GMAC championship. Right? I didn't know what was going on in that race per se. But it was to see the emotion. Right? You see these guys across that line and how much energy and time that they put in to be the best version of themselves and the love that they have for each other. And so those are the things that kind of like I said, filled my spirit.
Well, we're in the middle of season 2 since you've stepped away from coaching. I obviously still adjacent. You can walk across campus and catch a game if you'd like. But what has it been like kind of seeing Hillsdale basketball or basketball in
Yeah.
general, maybe through a new lens?
I'm more anxious watching our women's team, right? Coach Brie, I love dearly. It's year 2 for her. And so I get myself a little bit more anxious watching them. And the men's program, Kevin played for me at Lawrence, was my assistant coach. I'm trying to. There's been some moments where I get myself like, I got to give myself a talk, like settle down, settle down. But it's been great, I mean, it's, Katie, we lost a tough game at Lake Erie last Saturday, our men's team, right? And I just know, how coach must feel at that moment. And so I try to be as supportive as I can, on that phone call on Sunday and Monday and spending time with him. And so, um, I'm fine, right? I like I said, I love watching and cheering and being a part of it. And of course, I want Hillsdale College to win, and I want to try to support them as much as I can. But it's still a little bit different when you're the head basketball coach and you lose a game than it is being the athletic director and your men's team loses a game, for example. But it's been great because it's like I'm not very good at looking behind, right? It's not the way that I'm wired. I'm looking forward to the day and the week and what do we have to do to be the best department that we can be. So, and I'm thankful, Katie, that it was my decision, right? In this profession, it wasn't somebody saying, "Hey, it's time for you to go. You suck. It's time for you to go." It was my decision and to pursue the AD position, right? And so it's interesting. I think my wife looks at me in the month of July, like, "Why are you here? Why are you at the house? Why aren't you recruiting?" So I'm not sure if she's always happy, but it's been great, and I've grown as a person because of the role that I'm playing here, and to be a part of senior staff, to be part of Dr. Arn's team, and we have so many great people here at the college. I feel like I've learned a great deal in a short period of time.
Well, before I let you go, I am going to ask you to reflect, even though maybe that's not how you're wired. You were back in September inducted into the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. And I'm sure at that time maybe did a little bit of reflecting on your time in Wisconsin. And as you kind of are still I guess early on in this maybe new chapter of your career, how do you look back on where you've been and what really is your message for the athletics department under John Tharp moving forward?
Katie, well, I mean, I've been sentimental with certain things over the last couple of years, right? Because I never really ever let myself think about the glory days per se. The things that have been accomplished as when I was the coach, right? I never really let myself go that way, and since I've gotten out of it, I've had a chance to reflect on going to the Wisconsin Hall of Fame and spending the 13 years at Lawrence, and now the 16 years that I was here at Hillsdale as the head coach. Um, you know, Katie, I feel incredibly blessed, right? For my time. I also know though that my journey. Somebody once said to me, and I'm a big believer. It's not really, it's not the journey per se. It's who's with you on that journey. And the people that have been with me as on the 29 years, the assistant coaches, the guys that played for me that became assistant coaches. I'm godparent of former players' kids. I couldn't be more happy, right, with the basketball career that I had. People always said, you didn't get to the Division I level or whatever, and you know what? I think it was God's way of kind of protecting me from the standpoint because I was so relationship based. It's where I belonged. That's where it's as simple as that. And so the many people that have been with me that are still with me, I couldn't ask for anything more, and that's what I'm blessed. The message to our department, we talk about being excellent in the sense of grateful for the opportunity that we have to affect people's lives, right? To help young people be the best versions of themselves. Every day we have to wake up and we have a mission to fill, and that's what I hope we're doing here.
Well, we are extra thankful to, of course, have you as a part of our league and to leading our student athletes. And I think we have a great group of athletic directors that do that across our 13 members. But we're extra thankful that you took some time out of your day to chat and to
Yeah.
reminisce on things. I learned some new things in a little bit of research, so I hope everyone, enjoyed your journey to director of athletics at Hillsdale College. A great path, and you had some great lessons in there. So we certainly appreciate the sit down today.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for the opportunity. I love being with you, and love being a part of the GMAC, and for a lot of different reasons. And so, you guys are excellent, and you're really good at what you do. So we're thankful for you.